If you listen to John Tamny, the left, the right, supply siders, they've all got it wrong. And Anthony, you thought I was bad. This guy has alienated the rest of the whole country. There's nobody left. John Tamny, welcome to The Truth. And tell us what you mean. Why has everybody got it wrong? We're talking about the economy, obviously, and government deficit spending.
Well, they've got it wrong because I'm right. But more importantly than that, they've got
You
it
sound like
wrong.
my wife.
Yeah, that's right. Just let's just accept it and move on. We'll
Yeah,
talk.
exactly. All right. Well, thanks for coming on today. We sure enjoyed the interview.
No, we'll talk about sushi now. No, but everyone's wrong because left, right, supply side, libertarian, all the different viewpoints, they all believe that the only way to shrink the federal debt is to give Congress more money to shrink it. I've never heard of something more ludicrous in my life that the path to reduce debt is to give them more money. But that's what the warring ideologies all say specifically. If they're not saying it specifically, they're implying it. And so I've written a book that says, no, we have lots of debt precisely because too much money flows into Washington now. And much more perilously, exponentially more tax money will flow into Washington in the future.
Well, I kind of get your point. I have a nit where some of your uh, ideology or your theories come from. I mean, to me, you left out the Tea Party, Ron Johnson and uh, Rand Paul and others. I don't know if they're Tea Partiers. I know Ron Johnson is. I don't know about Rand Paul, but they certainly sing off the same page of music, and that is they're not complaining about a lack of revenue. They're complaining about too much spending. I mean, I thought that was the drumbeat that most conservatives were following.
Well, I think government spending is terrible. I think it's the biggest tax of all because it's the central planning of precious resources. So believe me that I'm siding with them. But what does Ron Johnson keep saying? He says the goal should be a balanced budget.
Well, what's the
Well,
matter with that?
to balance a budget in the United States, a country that has taxable access to the most productive, enterprising people on earth, that's like slam dunking on a 6 foot basket when you're 7 feet tall. I don't want a balanced budget because ask yourself the question, what are we going to look like if for years and years we have a balanced budget of $8 trillion? Would you prefer that or an annual deficit of 1 trillion on 1.5 trillion in spending? The problem is the spending. The problem is the extraction. To focus on a balanced budget is to allow government to grow and grow and grow. And that's the real burden in the future. It's the size of government left to the grandkids. It's not the debt. It's what we're leaving to them in terms of progress not made because government's spending too much and this massive government that they've got to support. I want to talk about overtaxation that enables the debt.
Well, I will concede that I think that Donald Trump probably, if he's done anything that's disappointed me, it is that he has not, by an air of omission, not tackled the deficit, not tackled government spending. He of anyone on the planet, he is probably the best person that could get the federal budget under control. And I do think that he is trying to solve the problem largely through new revenue, i.e., tariffs. And I have the hope that his methodology is to one, get the tax cuts in place, which Art Lafleur would tell you actually will produce more revenue and therefore more government tax revenue. And I'm okay with it coming from that source. But I think chapter two will be a serious attempt to reduce government spending.
Two things on that. Government revenue increasing, we've had that for 45 years. Think about it. In 1980, total federal debt was $900 billion. The view of supply siders, and to be clear, if you read my book, I am a supply sider. I think supply side is a tautology, reduce barriers to production. But the view was, oh, yeah, we'll just grow our way out of the debt. In fact, what happened was very predictable. Soaring government revenue born of economic growth enabled quite a bit more debt.
Yeah.
The total
No.
federal deficit is 42 times what it was. That's not a surprise. That would have happened with Republicans or Democrats, and it would have because if your revenues are trusted now, and more importantly, if they're trusted in the future, the world's lined up to lend you. And that's why I don't think spending cuts will work either. To be clear, I think government spending is the biggest tax. I don't want that to be questioned. But let's say Elon Musk had succeeded, 2 trillion in savings. Did he promise to burn up the 2 trillion? But you see, otherwise, if you save $2 trillion, you're going to give Congress 2 trillion worth of fresh powder to start on new
Well,
programs.
no, you make a point that I have stated here repeatedly, and that is with this newfound $600 billion of newfound tariff money is wonderful, provided that it goes to debt reduction. Period. Hard stop. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
But let's say we do that. Will that reduce government? Usually, a borrower just has more credit. In any other scenario, whether an individual, a business, you pay down the debt, that just expands your ability to run up more of it. And that's why we see every time that any attempt to pay off the debt does nothing to shrink government because it just gives them more runway. And we see it under Democrats and Republicans. Remember during the lockdowns in 2020, Donald Trump signed into law 3 trillion worth of spending that subsidized lockdowns across the country.
Well, look, in all fairness, we were dealing with a worldwide pandemic. I mean, the alternative was to allow the American economy to crash, and I don't mean crash; I mean crash and burn. I mean,
But
I
see,
don't
I
think
would
that he
say the
had any
alternative
choice but
was
to provide stimulus and help keep the economy alive, and it worked, by the way.
well, but I don't think it did. If I take $100 from your pocket and go spend it, is the economy going to grow? No, because you'll be $100 poorer. The answer was to not take away people's freedom in the first place. I don't need government to force me.
Well, that's a totally different subject, and I understand your point, but he didn't just take the money from the American people; he gave it back. I mean, I got stimulus money in the mail, and my two businesses got PPP money in the mail. I mean, that was very significant and material to my being able to keep um, 50 or 60 people employed and keep the doors open. Well, the doors weren't open, but bills, the fixed costs kept coming in.
But I agree. Look, I think you'd have preferred to have your doors open to have your freedom rather than government giving you money that they took from you. But
Well,
but,
I
but
think you're confusing masking, social distancing, and shutting down the American way of life, suspending it for I don't even remember how long it was. Was it a month, 6 weeks? I guess it depended on what state you were in.
Mhm.
Florida got opened back up relatively early. My wife and I really did not alter our quality of life appreciably. We just continued to do what we did, but instead of going into a restaurant, we took takeout. So, I mean, but it seems to me you're confusing freedom with economics, and in the case of the pandemic, and
How am
there
I?
are
I
certainly
just don't want my freedom taken. And they
well,
took
neither do
freedom
I.
and they crushed the economy.
Well, totally. But I mean, who's to blame there? I
President
mean,
Trump. Who else
well,
could have done this?
I challenge that because I think he was relying on the best evidence that he had from Anthony Fauci and Dr. Birx, and they just flat out lied to him. People that you have a good faith reason to believe out and out lied, and I don't make that up. We know that from Anthony Fauci's own emails. He was emailing people and he was saying that there's no scientific basis for social distancing. There is no proof that masks are going to stop the spread of COVID. Yet was the leading proponent of all the above. And again, Rand Paul was the first person in the Congress to really challenge him on it.
Well, okay, but I don't need a Republican to be for limited government when times are good. I need a Republican to be for limited government when all around them are losing their heads. I needed Trump to act like Trump in 2020, not to take the advice of someone else. Because As a free
Well,
person, I think it's most important. Freedom is easily most important when all around us are when no one knows the answer to something. Because how else can you find the answer? And so I
well,
don't think it's
suppose
enough to
let,
say that Trump got bad advice. Trump should have said, I will not fight a virus by putting people out of work and causing global starvation. Not happening here. And better yet, I'm not going to sign the 3 trillion spending bill into law that will subsidize this for weeks and months at a time. If he hadn't done that, California would have had to end its shutdowns within a week, and Florida would never have locked down in the first place. To say that Trump wasn't at fault here, I think that's giving him a lot of credit. We expect Republicans to act like Republicans.
no disrespect intended. I think you're being very uncharitable to President Trump. I mean, have you ever confronted a worldwide pandemic? I mean, who is he supposed to listen to? He's not a medical doctor. I mean, is he supposed to just through fiefdom say to hell with all of you guys? You're telling me
Yes,
that,
yes.
and every country in the world shut its borders and closed its doors for the period until we got the pandemic under control. But you seem to possess some kind of superior knowledge that you knew better than to do that. When every medical expert on the planet was suggesting that you had to stop the spread of the pandemic.
But John, that's precisely because I don't know that I wouldn't take away freedom. Freedom is what produces the knowledge because some people were going to lockdown. I know libertarians who didn't enter a restaurant for over a year. I also know people like me. My parents are 80 living out in California. They refused to let the lockdowns interfere with their lives. They said, we're healthy people. We are going to live. It's choice that teaches us whether or not something is as lethal as they say in the first place. See, even if Fauci was lying, and let's agree that he was, you don't say we're not going to let one person destroy the global economy and the US economy. You say we're going to allow freedom so that we can find out if what Fauci is saying is true. I'm sorry, it's easy to be a Republican during time. It's like George Bush in 2008. Well, he was for limited government until he wasn't. I'm tired of Republicans stealing my freedom and bailing out and locking us down when they should allow us to be free. I'm sorry, I'm a real Republican, but they keep failing me in times of need.
Well, how many people would you have had die before you tried to take drastic measures to stop the spread of
Do you
COVID?
need government to force you to live? Do you need government to keep you from doing things that might cause you to die? I don't
Well,
need that.
I need
If people had
I need
started
people with
dying en masse, ask yourself the question: if people had started dying en masse, do you think Americans would have needed lockdowns in addition to stop it? They would have locked themselves down on their own. You don't need government to hold your hand to do the right or wrong thing. You don't trust big government, neither do I. Why would you trust them in this instance?
Well, that I think that's an oversimplification. The fact of the matter is that there's a lot about government I don't like, and there's a lot about big government that I really dislike. But the fact of the matter is, we live in one of the safest, healthiest countries on earth. When you consider the food chain, you consider law and order, you consider travel. Uh, you know, government does provide a very needed service. When I go to a restaurant and I eat, I have the confidence of knowing that that food is probably safe. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time. So I'm not an expert. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a physician. I'm not a disease specialist. And so, if I were president of the United States, I would not be making those decisions. I would be relying on the biggest, the best, and the brightest that I had at my disposal. And I think that's exactly what Trump did. You're a good Monday morning quarterback, but I don't think would have made those decisions if you were in the chair.
No, 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 no. Trust me, this was not Morning quarterback. I was
Well, of
against it
course you
from the
are.
beginning. I don't believe in this is no Monday morning quarterback. And you look back at what I was writing from February on. You don't take away freedom. It's that simple. And we can't be situational about what we trust government to do. I think restaurants would be pretty safe without government going in there and harassing them and saying, you better follow our rules.
Well, I can take you to a nice Mexican restaurant down here in West Palm Beach that flunked their health care score, and you may want to rethink that. perspective. But
Okay.
anyway, let's. I mean, I can continue this if you want to. I don't mind. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about the economy and your insights into how to get control of government spending. I'm not sure that I the have heard the answer, other than I think that most conservatives agree that we need to curtail spending um, and use that savings to pay down the debt.
Yeah, that's what, and I would love to see reductions in government spending, but it never leads to reduced debt. And the reason it doesn't is if you give Congress fresh powder, they discover new ways to spend it. Let's
All
never
right. So how are
forget.
we going to? What's the answer then?
Well, I think the answer: what limits spending and what limits borrowing? The inflow of dollars. It's that basic. An individual that's known to not take in a lot of money now and not expected to take in a lot in the future can't borrow. A business that's thought to have very limited prospects in the present and future can't borrow. It works every single time. And that's what I explain in the book. I don't use charts and graphs and percentages. I just say, look at businesses. NVIDIA, the most valuable company in the world today, for the longest time couldn't rub two nickels together. And why couldn't it? No one trusted its future. Now NVIDIA can borrow billions and billions and tens of billions at a time. Government is no different, precisely because it has taxable access to the most productive people on earth, and even more perilously because it will maintain taxable access to the most productive people on earth whose wealth will grow and grow and grow in the present and future. Debt by definition is going to go up because the world is lined up to lend to a country that has so many rich people who are so massively overtaxed. And so I'm trying to change the discussion. For the longest time, we've said we can do this with spending cuts, a combination of spending cuts and more tax revenue. And all we've seen during that time, quite predictably, is debt soaring and the size of government soaring. At some point, we've got to say, what we've been doing has not just been wrong, but it's been abjectly wrong, just incredibly stupid. Let's focus on reducing the flow of dollars to government so that the people around the world are less willing to lend to us.
Well, we actually do have the guardrail that you're proposing, and it's called the uh, debt limit. But the debt limit, they just keep raising it. So I don't know what guardrail you would put in place to get the politicians to behave. But, we blame the politicians. But, the fact of the matter is the special interests are really to blame. They're the ones who continue to drive the spending and the flow of money out of Washington. And ultimately, I don't know that it's not the American citizens that gimme, gimme, gimme. I mean, we've got 50% of our population that are in favor of a socialist, communist form of government. We have grown an entire generation of people that are entitled. And instead of being grateful for what this country has done for them, we've just created a system where they want more. And the more they demand, the more we give. And the more we give, the more they want.
Well, but at some point, we've got to ask the people who promise when they go to Washington, promising to lead and to shrink government. At some point, we've got to hold them to their promises. And I'm merely saying
Absolutely.
spending cuts don't work. The Laffer curve is true. It's empirically obvious and true, but it only grows government because what's expected to take in more in the future can borrow easily. I'm saying politicians have to start talking about it differently. What they've been doing has been wrong. Maybe they should look at something that Republicans have never had the courage to do. Not just reduce taxes on the rich, but reduce them so substantially that revenues go down now and will be expected to continue to go down in the future. Do what would be good for freedom, brilliant for the economy, but that would also limit the willingness of the world to lend to us. Republicans have never tried it, but maybe they should. The New York Times will keep reporting every Republican tax cut is a massive giveaway to the rich, but they never are. The Trump tax cuts in 2017 in many ways raised taxes on the rich. At some point, let's cut them.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir. I think Elon Musk would like your theory. I mean, he said he's going to use the power of the pocketbook to go primary people that promise to go to Washington and reduce spending, and then continue to vote for continuing resolutions and increased spending. I'm right there. No issue with me whatsoever. And I think that is the ultimate solution. The American people need to take a stand and throw the bums out that continue the reckless spending.
Mhm. But there's got to be at some point, I do believe there's got to be a change in the conversation there, and that no one's talking. No, not Ron Johnson, not Elon Musk, not Rand Paul. And I'm very friendly with Rand Paul. It's all about we've got a debt problem. We need more revenue to pay it off. No, no, no. We have debt because we have too much revenue.
No, I've
And
heard Rand Paul say on numerous occasions that all it takes is one penny of reduced spending for 10 years and the debt goes away. 1% for 10 years. Over 10 years, you get 10% reduction in government spending and you get rid of the deficit.
again, does that work in any other walk of life? It doesn't reduce it if you don't start reducing the flow of dollars to government. You're just setting the stage for more borrowing. It's not a spending problem. It's a too much revenue problem. How much debt do you think Russia has? $300 billion. Do you think Russia has so little debt because Vladimir Putin is secretly a classical thinker who recognizes, as you and I do, that government spending is a tax on prosperity? Russia has no debt because the world doesn't trust its future. And so, and that's why Haiti doesn't have debt. That's why Peru doesn't have lots of debt. We have too much revenue now and in the future. And until spending cuts will not fix what is a problem of too much revenue.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. John Tamny and the Deficit Delusion. Any other parting thoughts before we run out of time here this morning?
Well, thank you so much for giving me a forum to look. Everyone says it's counterintuitive. I'm editor of Real Clear Markets, so I see the viewpoints on debt. I wrote a book that rejects all of them: left, right, supply side, libertarian. No one agrees with me. So thank you for giving me a forum. And I think ultimately we do agree. Government spending is central planning of precious resources. I want to shrink that, but I also want to shrink the government's ability to borrow to central plan even more resources. And I think the only way to do it is to shrink the flow of dollars to Washington. Spending cuts will not fix what is a revenue problem of too much revenue. So fingers crossed.
All right. Thank you very much. I hope you can continue to spread that word, and we want the same outcome for sure. John Tamny, and where do we find the book, and how do people
Oh,
follow you if they would like to stay in touch?
buy in bulk on Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble. It will hopefully find its way to bookstores, and you can find me on Twitter and I'm editor of Real Clear Markets, so you can see at least one column by me every day. But seriously, thank you so much for giving me the time of day to do this. It's hard to get this message out, but I'm really doing my best to do just that.
We'll keep up the fight, and thank you for a very lively conversation and a respectful one at that, I might add. And I've enjoyed the discourse. So have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks so much. Safe travels out west.
Thank you.